they suffer from a very serious infirmity. It's called amnesia. See, they want us to forget, like they have, where this country was 8 years ago. And I want you all to think about where we were 8 years ago today. 8 years ago today, we were in the process of losing 800,000 jobs a month. That is an astronomical number, unprecedented since the Great Depression. 800,000 jobs a month. We were in the process of running up the largest deficit in the history of America, $1.4 trillion. And by the way, 8 years ago today, economists were worried that not only would the American financial system collapse, but the entire global financial system would collapse. And you would go to an ATM machine, put in your credit card, and nothing would come out. That is where we were 8 years ago today, after 8 years of Bush's trickle-down economics. My friends, we are not going back to trickle-down economics and tax breaks for billionaires and cuts to programs for working families. And while we have come a long way in improving the economy, thank you, President Obama, we also know that we have a long, long way to go to create the economy that works for working families. We all know that too many of our people are working hard and not earning enough money. That real unemployment, if you include those people who have given up looking for work or working part-time when they want to work full-time, is over 9%, much too high. And that is why Secretary Clinton believes we have to create millions of good-paying jobs by rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure. This is America. We should have a state-of-the-art infrastructure, roads and bridges, water systems, wastewater plants. We should have the best rail system in the world. That investment, we create millions of good-paying jobs. And Secretary Clinton also understands that we should be hiring teachers, not firing teachers. Now, Mr. Trump, gone all over this country, he's very concerned about trade. Well, you're looking at a senator and a former congressman who not only voted against all of these disastrous trade agreements, but helped lead the effort against them, walked on picket lines with trade unionists against them. I knew then and I know now that those trade agreements were written by corporate America, that the function of those trade agreements was to enable corporations to shut down plants in America, throw workers here out on the street, and move to low-wage countries all over the world. Now, Mr. Trump talks a lot about trade. He talks a lot about outsourcing and his concerns about the impact of outsourcing on American workers. Well, I say to Mr. Trump, instead of talking the talk, why don't you start walking the walk? Instead of telling us how bad outsourcing is, maybe you should stop having factories in Bangladesh where you're paying your workers 30 cents an hour. Stop manufacturing your clothing line in China and in Mexico. And stop manufacturing your furniture line in Turkey. If you're so concerned about outsourcing and American workers, bring those jobs back to the United States. All of you know that we live in a highly competitive global economy. And if our economy is to succeed, we need to have the best educated workforce in the world. We need to be encouraging people to get all of the education they need. And by the way, that's not just young people. That is middle-aged people who are in jobs where the technology has changed. They need education as well. If this country is to succeed now and into the future, we have got to encourage people to get all the education they need, not discourage people. Right now in America, we have hundreds of thousands of bright young people who have done well in high school, who have the desire to get a higher education. They cannot, for one reason alone, and that is their families lack the money. Now, Secretary Clinton and I believe that 40 years ago, if you had a high school degree, you could do okay. Odds are you go out and get yourself a pretty good job. The world has changed. Today, when we talk about public education, it cannot be just first grade through 12th grade. We have got to make public colleges and universities tuition free. Secretary Clinton supports making public colleges and education tuition free for every family in America making less than $125,000 a year, 83% of our population. But it's not just the high cost of education, it is the tragedy of what student debt is doing to millions of people all over this country. Anybody here with student debt? All right, who can tell me what kind of interest rates you're paying?
A lot.
8? 6.8? What else? 9, 11? All right. Here is the story on that. Right now, if you wanted to go out and buy a new car, you could probably find interest rates of 1-2%. You wanted to refinance your home in Vermont, we do it at about 3 or 4%. I don't know what it is here. Probably the same. And yet we have people paying 8, 10, 12% interest rates on their student debt. What Secretary Clinton believes and what I believe is anybody holding student debt should be able to refinance those loans at the lowest interest rates they can find. And that would mean, dare I say it, huge reductions in student debt for many people. That is another area. Anybody here familiar with a federal program called the National Health Service Corps? Anybody here with it?
Yeah.
All right, a few people have. What it is and I played an active role in getting funding for it. It's a very sensible program that says to people, if you want to go to medical school, if you're in medical school, if you're in dental school, if you're in nursing school, if you're in a graduate school devoted to healthcare, if you are prepared to practice your profession in a medically underserved area, federal government will forgive your debt. I think it is time to expand that program. We need many, many great teachers, child care workers. We need people in all aspects of public life. If you're prepared to serve your fellow Americans in a nonprofit institution, your debt should be forgiven. Now, as we assemble today in this beautiful July day, it's not July, is it? It's November. There is another issue which comes to mind, and we're experiencing it today. And if people are not content to see the strength of Secretary Clinton's positions versus Mr. Trump's on so many issues, I would hope, for the sake of our kids, our grandchildren, and the future of this planet, that people look at this one issue. Secretary Clinton holds the very radical view that as president, she should listen to scientists. Now, I realize that is a very controversial statement, that we should listen to science, but that is what she believes, and that's what I believe, and that is what I believe all of you believe. And she has heard, as I have heard, that the scientific community is virtually unanimous in telling us, and I can't speak under the sun today, it makes the point, I think, that climate change is real, it is caused by human activity, and it is already causing devastating problems in our country and around the world. That's the reality. And what the scientists also tell us is that if we do not get our act together and transform our energy system away from fossil fuel to sustainable energies like wind, solar, and geothermal and energy efficiency, if we don't do that, we're going to see more drought, more extreme weather disturbances, more floods, more acidification of the ocean, more rising sea levels, and we're going to see more international conflict as people around the world fight over limited natural resources like water and land to grow their crops. That is Hillary Clinton's position, to listen to the scientists, to move forward, to transform our energy system, to invest heavily in sustainable energies like wind and solar.
Yeah.
Now, given the fact that I am in a state today which has helped lead this country moving towards sustainable energy in terms of wind and biofuels. Given the fact that I am in a state where between 6,000 and 7,000 jobs exist in the wind industry, given that I am in a state which today produces 30% of its electricity with wind, given that I'm in a state which provides biofuels to the whole country, given that reality, you might want to learn what Donald Trump's views are in terms of sustainable energy. Donald Trump, for a start, believes that climate change is a hoax emanating in China. And I've never quite figured out why it was China. I would have thought it would be Mexico or some Muslim country, but be that as it may, China is the bad guy. All right? Second of all, let me read you a quote that Donald Trump statement that he made just 4 years ago. This is what he said about wind. You are the leading state in this country in wind. Yeah. This is what Donald Trump said about wind, quote, not only are wind farms disgusting looking, but even worse, they are bad for people's health, end of quote. All right. Iowa, you are leading the country in wind. You got 7,000 jobs in the wind industry. And here is a guy who thinks that wind farms are disgusting and that they are bad for people's health. Well, that just tells us that Mr. Trump needs to study a little bit of science, just a little bit. I think that's important for the people of Iowa who are thinking about voting for Mr. Trump, to not to offer my condolences to the families of the 2 slain police officers. What we have got to do in this country is bring great police officers together with people in the communities. That's what Secretary Clinton wants to do. And what we have got to do also is end the disgrace of having more people in jail than any other country on earth. We spend $80 billion a year, $80 billion at local, state, federal level, locking people up. What Secretary Clinton understands is it makes a lot more sense to invest in jobs and education for young people rather than jails and incarceration. Yeah!